Welcome to the Called to Defend podcast, where before you sit two men with game far surpassing that of Solomon. I am Caleb Elliott, and this is Josh Davis. Josh, how are you?
Excuse me?
He had 1,000 wives. I think my game surpasses that.
Okay. Okay.
My wife literally fell head over heels for me. So
I'm not gonna ask how that story came about, but all right.
you don't know that story?
I don't think I do know that story.
Oh, it's a great story.
Oh,
My marriage started with abuse.
What? We can't have that now in the recording.
Oh, we can. So you know those like giant, knocker ball, right? Like they used to do at Youth Week, right? It's the bubble soccer, right? Where you get into the bubbles and you run into each other.
Yeah.
So we were playing that at youth group, and my wife went for the soccer ball, and I went for my wife. Right? And so this is the first time we met. We had never met before this. And so I'm built a little bit like an NFL safety, so I hit like an NFL safety. I sent her 3 feet in the air, at least. And so she bounces end over end, heels, literally head over heels, right? Just end over end, and then gets stuck on her head.
So now she's heels over head.
Right, exactly. So she's heels over head in love with me. And so the youth leaders had me get out and go help her. But she was like, no, screw this guy. Right? He just knocked me into Kingdom Come. I'm getting out myself. And so she got out herself, and that is how I met the mother of my child.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Church is a great place to meet your spouse.
Anyways, to your original point, yes, we're talking about Solomon. There's a point where we could have gone with David. That was implicit language. It felt better to do that if we were doing a priest series, which maybe we'll do sometime soon. That could be something to throw on the docket. But just in the idea of trying to stay so focused on the one, I didn't want to go for just an implicit one. Like the temple one, or the tabernacle, was literally like the actual function of the location itself and how those things play together. And so you have priestly figures on mountains, but now we're starting to get into priests and prophets and mountains all together with tabernacle. And then you're just, it becomes, as it is, the whole biblical narrative is tied together. But eventually it becomes like, we're just going to go through the entirety of the Bible. and rather than like, let's focus on this theme and helping us understand how this theme plays into the biblical narrative. So we can stay grounded and focused. So we're going to go on to Solomon because there is a little more of a explicit discussion is had there.
Solomon was explicit in many ways.
Yes, he is. But it's just going to be, I think it'll be a little bit clearer how we're drawing the parallels. As with the David one, it might seem like we're stretching unless you learn how to find it, and then you can see it. This one is like, here's just literally where it is, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
So Solomon's journey, we're going to go through briefly through his journey. We're going to go briefly through his journey within 3 sections probably. Okay. Unless the conversation really pulls off into multiple sections. We're going to look at...
Try and keep it short though.
we're going to look at beginning with his first encounter with God. We're going to reference his second encounter with God and how that ties with the first. And then we'll go into his apostasy towards the middle of First Kings. So we're going to go to 1 Kings 3. We're going to start on verse 2. We're just going to look at a small little section. There's a lot of really cool things in here. But we're going to start with, the people were sacrificed at the high places, however, because no house had yet been built for the name of the Lord. So the high places, in short, were actually things that you built on the high places to do these sacrifices. Hence why they're called high places. And, it's really just interesting how the narrative kind of talks about the high places. And here we have a kind of positive reflection on it. Yeah. There's so many negative ones.
I was going to say, normally when I hear or read about the high places, it's usually talking about, sacrifice to other gods.
Right. So when you hit Ezekiel,
yes.
Ezekiel is to speak out against the mountains and says, God's going to destroy you, your high places, your sanctuary. The entirety of this is like a full-blown spiritual warfare kind of message. Your gods are going to be smited.
Right, and I think about Josiah as well, right? He was famous for destroying the high
Oh, yeah.
places.
Because they were attributed to these other deities.
Yeah.
And so here, though, you have them doing it to Yahweh, which the question is kind of like, the reason why there's this weird question about this is that later on you see him in front of the Ark of the Covenant. So it's kind of like, we kind of have a
Right.
tabernacle here-ish. Why, like, what's, I'm curious, and one of the things I'm wondering if I'll ever find out with the Lord is like, what was the allowance of these high places when there was an established structure? But they even caveat is in the temple has not been constructed yet. So like the tabernacle's been having to be moved around a lot with all the things that are going on.
Yeah, well,
So there's a layer of like there's a place for the tabernacle, but also there isn't at the same time.
sure, and then perhaps it's because at this point Israel's rather spread out, right? Like it is the full kingdom. So if you're making sacrifices, periodically with frequency, then it would be a lot for somebody from Dan, for example, to travel all the way to Jerusalem. By the time you traveled to Jerusalem, then got back to Dan, you'd have to turn back around and go back to Jerusalem.
No, that's actually a really good point. I haven't really considered the size of the cities at this point. It's just an interesting thing that the high places are usually things that are forbidden, but here we have it. There's an acceptance here for it. There's an exception for it, and is prior to the building of the temple, which we kind of talked about last week. So, but anyway, so we're there, and the reason we want to read that verse is because we get to verse 3. It says, Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Really important to hold on to that phrase, that he's walking in the way of his father. Mm-hmm. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at the high places. So like he's the only one for himself is doing this. No one else is doing it for him. He's going through and making these sacrifices. So we get to verse 4, and it says, and the king went to what we transliterate as Gibeon or Givon to sacrifice there. Now what's fun about Gibeon is that also means like the highest place. So it's the highest place on the high place.
There you go.
And so it's like the place. So like in that region, it'd be like the place to go.
Right.
So it makes sense for a king to want to do this.
It makes sense for him to do it.
So he's there and he's making the sacrifice. And so for that was the great high place, is what we finished with verse 4, referring to Gibeon. So it's the great high place, hence its name.
HCSB translated as most famous high place.
Interesting. I don't know if that'd be a good way to go with it. But it continues.
Well, I mean, HCSB kind of translates more and does the legwork for you.
Sure.
Right? So
Sure. But you keep going. It says Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. Dude.
one for each
long
woman.
Day.
One for each woman.
But like, this is before that.
True.
Before that. So he's doing 1,000 going up offerings on that altar at the highest place. That's a lot. But like this, it shows like
Dude was in shape.
Yeah, he's dedicated to this idea of serving the Lord and giving him and showing his love for him. He's, as it says, he's following the ways of his father. He's seeking to be a man after God's own heart in this aspect. Keep going. At Givon, the Lord appeared to Solomon. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. So we have the going up offering. It's the highest place.
Now the Lord coming down.
Now the Lord has appeared to him on this mount. And it talks about how it was in a dream by night. What is interesting about the word for dream is that one of my interlinears actually puts in parentheses prophecy and vision. So sometimes, and I looked at the fullness of the word, so the word can refer to like an actual like sleep of person, but it also has a good number of usages referring to that of like dreams and visions from God during the night, that God's communicating with them while, like in this state. And so it's in this night that on this mountain we're getting a vision and communion with the Lord, which to me is interesting because in my mind I started to see this parallel, and then we go further. We're going to really see this parallel. We're getting a new Adam-esque type of language here because we have a mountain.
Yeah.
We have a dream.
I did not make that connection.
So, but if you keep going further, his request to the Lord is that what you be given is the understanding of Tov and Ra.
Right.
Which we translate as good and evil, but it's the exact same merism words as of the knowledge of the tree that it provides in the garden.
Right.
Which makes sense while the Bible still affirms like David's love for the Lord, But David was acting as a new Adam, and then crumbles with Bathsheba and everything that falls with that. So now we have another new representative of the people. And it's almost like every time we have like this Adam language, there's someone that he is, there's the fact that he is in this like, the same archetypal relationship with the Lord, if you will, but also the role that he is representing a people group in some capacity. Like you have Moses acting as a new Adam. You have Noah acting as a new Adam. You have David acting as a new Adam. But now you have Solomon, who's on the highest mountain in that region, who is making these sacrifices and is getting this dream vision where his request to the Lord is that he have this knowledge of Tov and Ra. That wisdom, that understanding. Now, of course, it's not the same word that's used of knowledge and understanding, but it's still a wisdom word with that merism tied to it. Lord, please provide me this understanding of Tov and Ra, so I can, which effectively is his reason, is so he can lead the people in a better way with such wisdom, which is effectively what Adam was supposed to do with like Eve, and what he was supposed to do when they carry out their work into the rest of the world, what Moses is supposed to be doing for the people, what David was supposed to do for the entire kingdom. Like you just kind of get this Adam language of Solomon, which is really just fascinating. Like in his opening section, you get, he's the heart of David and the story of Adam coming together again. It's just really cool that this is what's happening on this mountain. And there's not a ton there really, like, but you still get like these cool little throwbacks to these past narratives. Like this is, hey, pay attention. We got an Adam here. We got an Adam moment here. Sad thing is that usually when there's an Adam moment, there's usually a fall moment for that Adam. But it's just really kind of, I don't know, I thought
every time except for one.
Well, yes, exactly. Exactly. But I just thought it was really kind of cool when I found that.
No, definitely. I did not pick up on that at all. So that was really cool.
Yeah. So let me see here. So his request is that give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people. Again, so this is understanding. His desire is to govern the people the way that God would want him to, with the wisdom of God. Please basically give me your wisdom to serve them.
Exactly.
To serve. Which, think about like, from a wisdom literature application point, especially as church leaders of some kind of, or even like in us like small group leaders, that should be our desire, is to have the wisdom to lead people. Right. Now, as men who, in your case, you have wife and child, and I desire for my girlfriend and I to get married, and we have children, we also need to have wisdom, God's wisdom, to lead them in those things. Which, in any point that you're in any kind of leadership position, if I were to make a broad application, the desire should be to have the wisdom of good and evil, of the wisdom of God, to govern or to lead the people. Which I can't begin to tell you how many times that there's times I remember that, and so many times where I just kind of like went off on my own, and it's like, and I can feel the difference in my leadership when I was like, yeah, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't your finest moment. And then you're like, no, I saw how the Lord worked here, and it's like that reliance on that wisdom and using that wisdom, living, and not even just like using it, but living by it, because that wisdom is not just that head knowledge; it's that wisdom plays out in the way that you live, and you like even just listen to other people. Like knowing when not to speak, when to listen.
Right. I do a lot of that this series.
When we get to New Testament, you'll have some more fun because we'll get to the Sermon on the Mount, which is like one of your...
Oh yeah, I'm going to field day.
But we unfortunately can't do the whole sermon, which still bothers me. But yeah, we get this, on this mountain, is establishing this first encounter between Solomon and Yahweh. And in this one, it's, first off, the Lord appears to him. So that's, we have a manifestation of the Lord here, which is kind of cool. What does that mean? Is that like a Moses experience, like with the turn at the back, or is it more like the angel of the Lord experience? Doesn't really say, but the Lord appears to him. And then they have this vision, and says, what do you desire?
Yeah.
I desire to have this wisdom and understanding to govern your people.
And I love, and I get, right, that the whole point is that is a beautiful, profound answer.
Yeah.
Because I probably said, immortality or something like that, right? I wouldn't mind $1 million. Actually, I'd probably aim a little higher than that.
Oh, he already gets that later.
Exactly, right, yeah. But that's such a beautiful and profound answer, right? Like, because, God approaches him and says, what is it that I should give you. And he doesn't caveat that with anything.
Yeah.
There's no limit. Right? So theoretically, right, Solomon could say, make me into a god. Right now,
He wouldn't
we don't
do that.
No, he wouldn't do that. But there's no caveat given. Right?
'Cause he
Solomon
knows-
can give any answer.
And Yahweh's doing this because he knows the heart, which is what it gives that caveat. That it gives that caveat of the heart posture of Solomon at this time.
Right, exactly. But that's kind of what I'm getting at, right? There's no verbal like, and don't ask for this, because he knew Solomon wasn't going to.
Yeah.
Because he knew that beautiful and profound answer that he's going to give.
As one of the things I remember praying for back in my undergrad was, Lord, I know our desire is to be more like Christ. And I'm not going against that at all. But Lord, I would really love to have a heart like David. In the idea of like, because I know that ultimately we're going to be like Christ, and that Christ has that heart. I also know that knowing that I have that moral failing so often, that Christ exemplifies that David far greater.
Right.
I would be like, can you give me to at least that part?
Exactly, and that's what is so beautiful about Christ, right? We talked about how he's the new Moses, and we alluded briefly to the fact that he's really the new everything.
Yeah,
He's the new Adam, he's the new Moses, he's the new Abraham, he's the new David,
New Israel.
Solomon, new Israel,
New temple,
right?
high priest,
new Ezekiel,
everything.
new Jeremiah, right?
Pretty much
All
new,
of the prophets,
new Tanakh.
right? Exactly, he is the new, right? And that's kind of the whole point. But just as you're saying there, right? He's got the heart of David without the drive, without the giving into the passion.
Yeah.
Right. He's got the wisdom of Solomon without giving into the pride. Right. Excuse me. He's got all of these things, all of these positive traits, with none of the flaws that can possibly come as a result of those traits becoming less positive.
Yeah.
Right. Because obviously David loved very passionately, which means he got himself into trouble. Right. Solomon was a very, very wise individual, to his detriment sometimes.
Yes.
Right. So there is, because he would put wisdom like above the right thing to do. Right. Like, this is the politically wise thing to do, but is it the right thing to do? No. So
especially when the Torah was so explicitly clear prior to the kingdom
so
established.
clear. Right.
Which, as a king, and the reason I'm saying is not to be a technicality, as a king, it was a requirement that they wrote out their own copy of Torah.
Right.
So which means
And
he
kept it
knows
with
this.
them.
So he
Yes.
has access, and he should know this deeply. And
But
I know
knowing it does not mean practicing.
I know,
right?
and that's the hard thing, is that there's so many things that we just know, we don't practice. Or we know we shouldn't practice, but we do anyways.
Yeah. So, but to go back to that, I don't think you're wrong to ask for a heart like David, right? There's a song by Sanctus Real that it's called Confidence. And it says, give me faith like Moses, give me a heart like David. Right? Those are true and good things.
Yeah.
Right? We should desire those. Understanding, as you said, that we will fall short. I like to say that God's standard is perfection, that is not his expectation. He knows just as we will, or that just as we do, that we will fall short.
Yeah.
But we can still desire those positive traits that Christ embodies, because ultimately when you are praying for a heart like David, you are praying that God, as you said, God, I am a sinful man. I know I'm not going to live up to your standard. That's just not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Help me to have a heart like David at this time.
Yeah.
Which is so passionate and loving toward you.
Yeah.
And then please help me with the sanctification part, because
Help me to
I need that.
help me to get even closer to being like
Exactly.
Christ. That's right. Yeah. I've read these passages so many times before, but it's never really clicked. Like, and so I just caught that Adam language. I was like, oh. And catching the language of talking about his heart posture. Remember, hold on to that, because that's really important to recognize that. But so if we continue the narrative, we then eventually get these awesome times where Solomon uses wisdom, like the two women and the child. And he's like, what? Hey, no, this is my child. No, this is my child. Here's an idea. Cut the child in half, and you're both good. And they're like,
if you are the soldier that's given that order, you look at him like, really?
is that wisdom is kind of like, they're like, what are you talking about? That's so stupid. But he knew that the true mother's response was going to be protect the child.
Yep.
And so he knew that this is the way to call him out.
And he knew that the wickedness of the other woman, right? To swap your baby, your child that you killed, for another person's child and make them think that they killed their child.
Yeah.
Is awful, firstly, but even more so, he knew that, okay, if she's willing to do that, she's like, yeah, sure, cut the baby in half. That way we can each have one.
Yeah.
Right? Because her heart posture, right, going back to that, is just so desperately wicked.
Yeah. Because if you're trying to steal a child, you're already
pretty far gone.
Yeah, you're already off to a rough start. But you just get these awesome moments of like him using this wisdom. But they also get the moments where he's now starting to build up the kingdom, which on one is kind of like awesome, not awesome, because if we consider Torah, you're starting to build up the kingdom in ways you probably shouldn't be building. But again, it's that he's using that wisdom for the political side.
Ecclesiastes 2 intensifies.
Right. But during all this, we get the fulfillment of something that God tells David, which is, you're not going to build the house, the temple. The one after you will, which is your son. And we get, chapter 5, we get the preparations for the temple, and we get the building of the temple. I don't think we need to really spend a lot of time talking about the temple because we did an entire tabernacle. And the temple is basically a firmly established tabernacle. The tabernacle was able to be moved around. The temple was like, this is it. This is where we're at.
Yeah.
And so within the temple, like, you still get the 6th and the 7th pattern with these proclamations that Solomon makes regarding the temple. And the 7th one also deals with resting. So you get that creation tied to it. It's just really kind of cool. You kind of get those things there. You guys can go look into that. Again, I think I referenced this last time. Bible Project has a little diagram that they made showing these. They show the same diagram with that included. So if you want to go check that out on their website, it's really easy to read and go through to kind of see the things I'm talking about. But we get the building of the temple, and we get this furnishing. But prior to all that, we get the discussion with the expansion of the kingdom, and then afterwards, we get after the building of the temple, we get the ark being brought into the temple. So now we're getting like the idea of the presence of God being the temple in relationship to the ark. So we're getting all this language of like tabernacle. Things should be great. Things should be in an awesome spot. However, if we remember the Eden pattern that we've talked about in various stuff before, the if you will, the serpent and Eve pattern, there's frequently a establishment of an Adam, an establishment of creation at the same time, or a sacred space. God's filling that sacred space. Things are good, there's rest, and then something changes.
Yeah.
So you can go through like 5 through, I think it's like 9 or 10 is when it gets to the whole discussion about like the temple itself. Chapter 9, you get within the temple, Yahweh appears to Solomon again. That's really important to recognize that he appears again, because in chapter 11, God specifically mentions, I came to you twice before. And so you know that these two events, there's the chapter 3, so on Gibeon, and then after the temple's been established.
Yeah.
Okay. So both those there. And what's cool is in both of those chapters, God says that he's going to provide this blessing to him, but he caveats it by saying that is if you continue to follow me or dedicate it to me. Mm-hmm. If you don't, I will keep my promise to David that you'll reign, but after you, this kingdom's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And by that, I'm going to divide them, and someone from your line, because they're from the line of David, will reign here, but you're not going to have the whole kingdom.
Right.
So I'm keeping my promise to David, but I'm not doing it in the way that you'd want it to be. So you decide, do you want the whole kingdom to be unified together, or we're going to break up into parts? Mm-hmm. And so that's caveated both times with this promise. So we get to chapter 11 then. This is after he has his encounter with the Queen of Sheba, and then you see more about his great wealth, which, as a king, good on one hand. As an Israelite king,
Not great.
we're in a problem spot right now because the Torah makes it very clear: should not accumulate all this money, a lot of wives, a lot of horsepower, literally, and all these things, because the idea is it's supposed to be a kingdom that is fully reliant on God. What's interesting is that there was times when they weren't even really supposed to take censuses of the army because
David gets in trouble for that.
exactly because it was a showing of lack of trust of the numbers that God has already provided. It's like, hold on, who you know
the
how this
lesson of
works?
Gideon, right?
You
Yeah.
know how divine conflict works. The gods, aka I, decide if you're going to win or not. You're doubting me. You're trying to take this in your own hands.
Right.
And David, yeah, like you said, David gets in huge trouble for this. That plays into Torah, which is the very thing that Solomon, who is this wise person, is living out the wisdom he's given, but also not at the same time. And we see where that changes in chapter 11, where things just take a huge, huge turn. So if we start at verse 1, now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women, from the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the people of Israel, you shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Right, so that's the concern of marrying people from outside. And it's not the idea that, the foreigners, if they were to come and be part of Israel, that they couldn't marry them, but it's the fact that they're foreigners
Ruth style.
still attributing their value or their allegiance to the other deities. This cosmic geography that we've mentioned before. That the concern is they will lead you astray in that way.
Right.
And that as a king, he was supposed to have more than one anyways. So he already has his one in chapter 3 with Pharaoh's daughter. But that means he's accumulating a lot more. More than likely for political reasons, but also because of some other reasons as well.
I've been feeling something.
But yeah, so then it says Solomon clung to these in love. He had 700 wives, which that's wild to think about.
One is enough.
Princesses, 300 concubines. That's 1,000 women. That's 1,000 women. That's just a lot. I don't know.
I was going to say, if he slept with 2 of them a day, he would not get through all of them in a year. Think about that for a second.
Well, I'm thinking so you're married. I'm thinking like my girlfriend, the amount of time and love even at a long distance, I try to show to her.
Yeah.
You can't do that with
No.
multiple wives. You can't show them the love that they need or the love that they deserve.
Correct. Right. Because each one of them is a full and complete image bearer of God.
Right.
Who deserves to be loved as a full and complete image bearer of God. And that's something that, polygamists often get wrong, because there are Christian polygamists. I shouldn't put that in air quotes because, their views on polygamy are not soteriological. Yeah. However, I have found that those who are loose with that tend to be loose in other areas.
Sure.
Which do matter for more soteriological statuses.
Soteriological, for anyone who doesn't know, referring to like doctrine of salvation, how salvation works.
But I've noticed that there's a growing movement within Christianity for polygamy.
Yeah.
It's still small and it's not growing very quickly, and I don't think it will get very large.
No. It's very countercultural in the wrong ways.
Right. But that's something that they never really address, which is how do you love each woman fully and properly?
Right.
They'll be like, well, just the same as any other wife. It's like, well, no.
Yeah.
Right. I love my wife so much more deeply than I love any other human being. Now, I would say the same thing about my daughter, obviously in very different ways.
Sure, of course.
But it's because they're different ways that I can love them like that.
Right.
If you have to love the same individual like that in the same way, that love is going to be sacrificed in some area.
Yeah.
Right, and the classic example is, well, do all of your wives sleep in the same bed? Well, no, that'd be weird, that'd be gross.
Yeah.
Well, then, okay. So you're essentially now being Jacob, where you're just rotating through the wives. So that means, let's say you have...
We saw that with just 2 wives. There was a huge amount of enmity.
Right, exactly. All right, let's just say you have 2 wives. You are then depriving, let's say, and you sleep every other night. You sleep with one wife.
Depriving one of them of...
You're depriving them 50% of the marriage bed is empty. That is horrifying. That is awful.
Well, they can argue back saying kings didn't always sleep with their wives, but still, that the idea, the practice
I use
love,
marriage bed in
Right.
the most literal sense of bed that you sleep in with your wife.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like they might argue like kings don't always sleep with their wives in that regard. My point is that
you, firstly, are not a king. Secondly, kings are told to have one wife.
that's the point I'm going to. I was going.
You
in that
should be
direction.
sleeping in the same bed as your wife.
I'm thinking like just the one too. Like I'm not going to argue like this is like my automatic comeback for this argument, but marriage is supposed to be the picture of, especially the New Testament Christians, is supposed to be the picture of Christ and the church. That's one bride for Christ, and if that's that picture, Christ doesn't have multiple churches.
I've used that. Yeah, I've used that argument before too.
And so I'm not saying like, hey, that's slam. But like, if we're thinking about what the picture of marriage is supposed to be,
Right. I think that is a slam. I think that is a slam dunk argument, because you're not going to be able to push back that Christ has more than one bride, and they're certainly not going to push back that marriage is the picture of Christ in the church, because that's from Scripture.
Yeah.
Right. Ephesians 5 is pretty expressly, it's pretty explicitly clear. That's what I wanted to say in that stance. So no matter what argument you try to use, and my favorite of theirs is, well, it's never condemned in Scripture. Like, it kind of is, but also because I don't think it needs to be, because there's so many passages
You
that
just
are like,
see
you
so
should
many
have one
descriptive
wife.
passages of how it falls apart.
Right, exactly, and that and prescriptive passages on, love your wife, give yourself for her. Right, it's always monogamous language. Right, one flesh. Right, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, singular, and they shall be one flesh, singular. Right, which again brings up the question: how can you be one flesh with multiple people? My favorite response, though, is show me a passage where it's prescriptive. Right? If there's nothing wrong with it, generally in Scripture, you find a passage where it's prescriptive. Like, this is good for you to do, or this is all right for you to do, or this is bad for you to do. Show me one where it's prescriptive. They never can. It's always crickets. Because there isn't one. Because it's not God's design.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, we rabbit trailed massively there. Sorry.
No, you're good. So if we continue on with verse 4, for when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God.
Shocker.
We have the heart posture change. We have got, and it continues. If we read verse 6, so Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, which is interesting. I heard from one scholar and read from another scholar that frequently you see the word evil in the sight of the Lord. Majority of the cases is actually tied to worship of other gods. Like that is like, especially as an Israelite, you have completely turned away from. Now, that's not to say the other ones aren't evil, but like that is almost always what that's tied with is idolatrous worship of something else. That's not Yahweh's. That's not Yahweh God. But it says that he did evil in the sight of the Lord and did not wholly follow the Lord as David his father had done. We've gone from had the heart that his father David had to now he's nothing like his father David.
Yeah.
There's a huge, huge switch in his heart posture.
Well, and we didn't get to it, but even in First Kings, he talks about that desire to be like David.
Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show when you are far from God, right? Because he's not on the high places here, right? So if we're gonna kind of keep with the mountain theme, right? When he's on Gibeon, he is close to God, right? Very close, like literally communicating with God.
Yeah.
He's wandered from God physically and ethically here. Right? And so when he's close to God, he says, I want to be like my father David. Sans the flaws. And now that he's far from God, I would push back and say, he is like David in some ways.
Sure.
Right? But not in the ways that actually matter.
Right.
Right? Not in the good ways, right? Not in the ways that the passage is actually talking about. Where it's saying he's not like his father David in that he does not have this loving, burning, almost jealous passion for God.
Like even for David, when he was still in sin, his heart was still
Right.
Like there was that conflict, but his heart was still for God. Solomon has now turned totally away from him.
Yeah.
It's not just like he's in sin and is like trying to hide it and like so trying to keep a relationship with God. It's like turned so far away, and that's where we get to like verse 7. Solomon built a high place. So he's built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Molech, the abomination for the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem, which is technically a Mount of Olives. So on the Mount of Olives, he's now built these two high places that are dedicated to Molech, which it's been known as to be like the god that has a statue that is burning and that you put children on to sacrifices, like these vile, awful things. Chemosh would be, I believe, based on which text? There's an ancient years text. We actually have access to it in our account among us, where it's actually like the main text that talks about Chemosh, and actually a lot of the language is similar to the Bible, not in the idea of like sharing stories, but in the way they talk about conquest and how and then how this deity works. And so they're saying that this seems to imply that Chemosh is like the head deity. Gotcha. So he's the Yahweh of these people. Whereas Yahweh's like, there's no other one who I share with. Like, it's just me. Chemosh is like the head deity of his little pantheon within there.
Gotcha.
Then you go
it's
to
like the Zeus.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, or like in
Jupiter,
Canaanite and Ugaritic with El being the head god.
Okay.
But even in those texts, Chemosh is not the head in those texts, but he's the head of this one. It's based on the geography that they're in.
Yeah.
And so there's some things you can find about these different gods, and it's really kind of interesting just to kind of see the point being that the first command is to have no other Elohim before him, and then not to make engraven images. And now you're making high places with probably engraven images dedicated to these other beings. And this is part of his completely turning away. Like now he's making not even just like a different god that he's like focusing to worship on. He's focusing like he's worshiping like a god for like almost like every wife that he's like following. Like he's basically embracing the entirety of the pantheon almost. Yeah. Like you're going across the different nations and what they follow. But I think another cool, really interesting thing here is that I said that it was that they're referring to the Mount of Olives, right? The mountain east of Jerusalem, which every commentary I've gone through and search engine refers to like that's the Mount of Olives. But it doesn't say that, and it calls the Mount of Olives other places. It actually says the mountain east of. The word east is actually a really important indicator for a person's relationship with the Lord in many cases.
Okay.
The idea of going eastward or facing eastward starts that there's the first like the idea of like the garden being planted. But Cain is told that he's going to be sent east of Eden. And all these are ones that are talking about being east of this. If you're going east from, or like in Ezekiel, the priests in, I think it's chapter 8, 7 or 8, I think it's 8, where it says that they are bowing unto the sun with their backs against the temple facing east towards the sun. The idea of going eastward is the idea of going, is like tying back to what Cain had to go through, which is going away from Eden, going away from God's presence. Yeah. To go eastward in the idea of what your posture is to say that this person has gone away from the presence of God, which if you're focusing on these other deities, that makes sense. So the idea of like Mount of Olives is becoming east of Jerusalem. Mount of Olives has become, in the cosmic geography essence, a mountain not of Yahweh, but a mountain of pagan deities,
Yeah.
which is a vile, grotesque thing to be doing, especially as a king of Israel, whose very desire for wisdom was to govern the people as Yahweh would want. And now he's governing them away from Torah, away from him, eastward, outside of the garden. It is right after we get the beautiful, maybe not right after, but after we get the beautiful establishment of the temple, God's second appearance to him, and God even calls him out saying, I appeared to you twice, and I told you how this is going to work. You've done this. We're going to divide this kingdom now. But it's right after that. It's the same thing with the Eden narrative. The establishment of creation, man's in the sacred space, there's rest, tree, there's some kind of tree, some kind of temptation. And for him, it's a whole lot of temptation. All these pagan wives who are dedicated still to the gods.
Right, and something that's interesting there is you talked about how he is basically running the gambit of the pagan gods, right?
Yeah.
He's also running the gambit of sin.
Yeah.
Right? He is coming up upon sin, and you can read this in Ecclesiastes. He's coming upon sin, upon indulgence, upon indulgence. And he's just going over all of them. And it's interesting teaching on the demonic series.
Yeah.
And the different demons and what they're associated with, and how some people link that back to the gods of the Old Testament.
Sure.
And it's kind of like, it's interesting to think about, perhaps, he's worshiping this god associated with this sin.
Sure.
Right? And then he's going to, Molech, for example, and he's worshiping that god by whatever depraved act was being done in that moment.
Yeah.
And is he just going, God by God, sin by sin?
Yeah.
And just, as you said, completely wandering from God.
Yeah. And it's going to sound weird. The serpent in the garden is described as being a room. We translate it as cunning today because we're understanding that he is a negative character.
Right.
But the word of room is used very often positively too. It's a wisdom word, which makes sense in Jesus' language, saying, be as wise as serpents, but as innocent as doves.
Yeah.
Because the serpent is a spiritual being who has the wisdom of Elohim. Like he has this Elohim wisdom. But he's using it in ways to get what he wants. He's not being that innocent dove. Solomon has this wisdom, and he's using it negatively, which goes to show that if we need to be aware of the blessings that God gives us, and remember that they're from him, and we should be using it for him, because we can easily take those and use them for evil. And because Solomon has this authority as first off as king, so pretty much whatever he says almost goes, but also because he's established a temple, he's done all these things, he has so much pull that he can lead an entire nation astray into pagan worship, which is like that one of those big tension within the rest of the books of the Kings and the Chronicles of like these different kings. Some are okay, some are really awful. Sometimes there's a really good one that pops out and they're trying to bring things back, but the people are just being pushed more and more within their own land, not even in exile, in their own land, into not being the holy sanctified people. And so the mountain now, they're not even like in this idea, they're not even like not on top of the mountain, they're not climbing the mountain, they're like at the base, as getting further and further away from it. Israel has gone to a point with this, especially at least with its leaders, where no one's on the mountain. No one's going up there because the leadership has pulled them away. Which, that, again, just stick to that general application of leadership as one Bible study leaders, but if with discussion we're having with our pastor about different kind of roles he wants us to consider, and just think about how roles are taken up. You see that across the world in our country where you can have a church that's going well, but then a leader comes in, maybe with good intention at first, maybe not with good intention at first, but has his authority and has his wisdom. And whether they start off as a dove or start to slip into being more like a serpent in terms of the devil aspect, it goes into this really dark place.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to end on a darker note, but that's where Israel's at the state of, like, throughout the kings.
Right.
And you
Yes.
you get those positive ones. There was like Josiah, where he comes like, no, let's destroy it all. We found the Torah. Let's destroy it all. We don't need this here. We got to follow him. But then things kind of go back in the same way, which then brings up the point with like Ezekiel. They're like, God's not here anymore, so we're going to keep having these idols and all these things. It's like, you know why he's not there in that essence? Because
you have all those idols.
you have all those idols. You have done the very things that if you do this, I will not be there. But if you follow me, I will be with you.
Right.
I cannot have this pagan, depraved stuff in my presence. It's not going to go. It's not going to fly.
Yeah. So perhaps it's not a dark note. Perhaps it's more of an advisory note.
Maybe an advisory note, but also we can end with hopeful. We see that pattern, as we just mentioned before, like that Adam pattern. The question is still going to be, who's going to ascend that mountain so that way we can be in that presence of God, but not just temporarily. And there's still that one to come who is going to be on several mountains teaching from a couple different of them, doing some wild, cool things on a few of them, or after being on one. But then also is going to be the ultimate going up offering, so that we can actually be in that presence with him. And maybe that's a better place to end.
Well, if you want to be filled with hope, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button and the bell so that you are always notified of when we post. Because we do a lot of this kind of stuff, as well as apologetics, polemics,
Music videos.
Music videos. That's right. We
have two now.
We've two now. That's right. I did listen to our second one. Give those a listen, because why not have a little fun in life? And ultimately, let us know what you think about the series thus far. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've learned quite a bit. I feel like I say that every time, but it's always true.
I think we're going to turn a little bit towards the wisdom literature and how they look at Zion and Sinai. And that'll probably be our biggest next spot, I think.
Cool.
Which will be, we'll probably truncate to like 1, maybe 2 episodes. I think we'll kind of get the point. And we can go to like the prophets, and then we can jump into the New Testament. It'll be fun.
Lord willing.
Yeah.
But until then, as God wills it, we will see you in the next video.